right, so what we're gonna go over now is the couch stretch. It's one of my personal all-time favorites because it does two things. One, it works amazing for the people working behind the desk. Seated, everything's nice and contracted in the front. It's also amazing for athletes of any sport because what we're gonna be expressing is extension through that hip and flexion in the opposite hip. So, very easy setup. I personally have wussy knees, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using this mat here. So, I'm going to bring it out to show you where you want to start. Now, the reason we call it the couch stretch is because you can use a couch, a chair, stairs, or in this instance, a wall. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bend down on one knee and just bring my foot right up against the wall. Now, this is where you could be putting your foot up against the couch, the chair, the stair, or the wall. All I'm going to try to do is pull myself all the way up. I want to be as erect as I possibly can. Now, if you find that you can't come all the way up, that's okay. What I want you to do is focus on the next principles. So, I'm going to be fully up, I'm going to be nice and tight through my core, and what I want to do is I want to begin to posteriorly tilt that hip. So what that means is I want to draw this hip back towards the wall. Reason why is because as I move that pelvis back, I'm elongating all the tissue in the front, getting an even deeper stretch, hitting those anterior fascial lines. Now, the harder I can pull that hip back while maintaining an erect posture and keeping my ribs over top of my pelvis, is I'm actually going to start getting those lower fibers of the hip flexor as well, coming in through iliacus. So I'm going to be here. Now, let's say you get into this position, and as you can see, my heel to bum is not very close. So for those that right here, they're like, I don't really feel anything, no problem. All you have to do, take this mat, move it further in. Now I'm nice and close. My bum's real close to my heel. I'm going to stand upright, draw a nice contraction through my core, keeping my rib cage over top of my pelvis. I'm going to posteriorly tilt those hips, right? So I'm going to draw those hips forward. Ooh, that's a good stretch. Now, if you want to take it up a notch, this leg right here, especially for my runners, this stretch right here is going to be key because what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to squeeze my bum of this knee. Now it's really hard for people when I'm in a state of flexion through the hip to squeeze that glute and get a full contraction. But imagine the power output we can do if in a static stretch that we're doing here, I'm also neurologically trying to facilitate a deep contraction. So I'm doing two things now. By contracting those glutes, I'm further posteriorly tilting my hip, as well as creating even more neurological pathways for a greater power output in any lift or exercise that I'm doing. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to stay in this position, squeeze my bum as hard as I can, and feel that stretch.